Okay, welcome back to the AutoSIM tutorials. This one's going to cover Virtual Lab 3, where you're going to be changing the pneumatic circuit to be an electro-pneumatic circuit. So instead of just being pure pneumatics controlled by compressed air, we're going to introduce electrical controls into the system. So just as before, we're going to go down here and open AutoSIM from SMC on the Windows menu. You might have a desktop icon as well. Yeah, I got one here. All right, and here is the initial AutoSIM window. So just like we did before, we right-click the Simula item and add a Simula page. Then we're going to right-click and add an object. So the first part of this, we're going to start with the pneumatics. It's going to be very similar to the other, the first project. We're going to go to the actuators and go to cylinders and choose a double acting cylinder, just like we did before. I'm going to put it over here a little to the right because I want to make room for my electrical stuff on the left. We're then also going to use the same valve. Here it is, directional valves. We're going to go to a 5-2 valve. But in this case, we're going to have an electrical control. Before we had pneumatic pilot control. So electrical control looks like this. And those symbols that you see on the ends are symbols for solenoids. So those are electrically actuated solenoids that are going to magnetically push this valve back and forth between its two positions. And I'll show you in a moment how we're going to make a connection between those solenoids and the electrical part. But first we're going to connect up the valve to the cylinder. And we also have to add the exhaust and the compressed air source. So those are found here under flow lines. Let's do the pressure source first. And then place the exhaust ports. Just going to copy that. So, so there's the pneumatic part. So the electrical part, we're going to, instead of like before we controlled these with other pneumatic valves, we're going to build an electrical control circuit over here. So first thing we need is we need a solenoid symbol. So we're going to jump into the electric section of the menu. And out here under output components, down at the bottom, we see this thing called a solenoid. So this is the electrical symbol for the solenoid you see over here. So in the pneumatic schematic, the solenoid looks like this. It doesn't actually show the electrical connections. In the electrical circuit, it looks like this. So I'm going to make this, I'm actually going to rotate this, and it's pointing out like this. Now we've got two solenoids here, so we're going to need another one of these. So we'll do a copy, paste. And the next thing we're going to need is a switch, just a simple push button switch. Just like we had pneumatic push buttons, now we're going to use electrical push buttons. So now add an object, go down to connections, to contacts, and push button, normally open. Click on that. Place this up here. We're also going to rotate this one, so it's facing straight up. And we need to make a copy of that. Okay, the other thing we're going to need is a power source. So we're just going to use 24 volt DC power for our electrical circuit. And so over here, we just collapse this big menu here, and under electric power sources, just going to click power supply 24 volts, and it just comes up as a little circle with a 24 volt label in it. We're not showing any of the connections or the power supply or anything like that. It's just a simple 24 volt source symbol. I'm going to rotate that. And then we're going to place the symbol for common, 0 volts. And okay, now we're ready to make the connections. So we can just connect this here, connect the second push button, then make a connection from the push button to the solenoids, and then 0 volts connecting down here. Okay, so now, this circuit is a little different. Just gonna where we have electrical and pneumatic. So to keep track, I'm just going to put a couple of labels down here. And so there's some drawing objects, and under there we've got text. So I'm just going to double click that and write in electrical. And we'll copy that. And this is going to be our pneumatic. The next thing is we have to make a connection between the solenoid in the pneumatic schematic and the solenoid in the electrical. So the way to do this in AutoSIM is you double click the valve, and over here it says symbol A, and I'm going to call this, we're going to use a notation similar to what is used on the HAS 200. I'm going to use the uppercase A to indicate the solenoid, and the one that is going to push it to the extend position I'm going to call A plus, and the one that pushes it back to retract I'm going to call A minus. So we've got A plus and A minus, and you notice those labels show up out here. And then we have to go to the solenoid and give them the same symbol. So A plus for the extend solenoid, and A minus for the retract solenoid. And then if it's the first time you've built the program, you have to click compile like we did before. And then after that, connect. And now we're ready to hit this soccer ball symbol, which is the one that runs the simulation. This system was built by a team in Spain, and they're mad about soccer over there, so they're using soccer balls for the run icon. All right, so if I press this push button, what just happened is, let me just do this again. You can actually see AutoSIM gives you colors to show you what's being powered or what's being connected. So let me just put it back where it was. So all right, so I'm starting here. It's retracted because the valve is in that position. What I'm going to do is power up valve solenoid A plus electrically over here. When I push that, you notice that the solenoid lights up in the electrical part, and it also lights up in the pneumatic. I don't have to hold the button because once it actuates in that direction, it's going to stay there. There's nothing to push it back. The only thing that will push it back is when I hit the second button, and then it'll retract. So there's our electro-pneumatic version. This is the same function as the first circuit in in Virtual Lab 2 just being done by using electrical actuators rather than just pure pneumatics.